So I found this cheap scorpion toy at the dollar store, and I'm trying to see what I can do with it. I need a giant scorpion for my next session. Let's see what we can do. So the first thing I did, which I lost the video for some reason, but if you look at my other videos, you can see me chopping apart a similar scorpion to make my Collie. I just took an X-Acto blade and I chopped all the legs off and I chopped the tail off because the legs were too splayed out and it doesn't make any sense to have a scorpion with a tail sticking out behind it. Plus, it would not fit on my base. So I'm just using my X-Acto knife to clean up the trimmings. I think this is called flashing or something like that. It's what happens when you make something in a mold. It has like little edges where the mold fit together. I also noticed that my claws don't quite fit on the base the way I want, and I want this to be a more dynamic posed creature, so just using some hot glue to put things where I want them once I've trimmed them down, and just using the hot glue to put things where I want them. It's not meant to be permanent, it's just to hold them in place for the time being, and then later I'll be using green stuff, which is a 2-part epoxy putty that you just mix together and have, I think, about an hour of workable time, and that will be what not only more permanently holds the piece together, but also hides the hot glue and makes it have more texture and other details that I want to have. So here's the green stuff. I do not recommend getting packs the way I have here. If you can get it in the 2 separate little containers and mixed together, that's way better because this little piece is just wasted because it reacts when the yellow touches the blue. And when you mix it together, it will turn green and start working like a normal epoxy putty and you have a certain amount of time to use it before it hardens. But because in this plastic wrap, it touches in the center, it causes the chemical reaction to occur. So the stuff that touches in the center is completely useless and you just have to throw it away. I have tried to use it in the past, but it doesn't cure right and it's lumpy and nasty. So just toss it, or better yet, don't buy it in this kind of strip pack. So I am just covering all of those joints that I wanted to cover that have hot glue on them with the green stuff, and then I'm using my silicone sculpting tools and fingers, usually using a little bit of water so that the green stuff doesn't stick so much to me, and I'm putting in some details and pressing in really firmly to make sure it's got a good grip on the toy. Here you can see I've got the base of my tail all covered. I've rejointed all my legs so that they fit on the base and stand upright more, and I've moved my claws into a better position. I'm just using some Mod Podge. You can also use PBA glue for this to just cover my particle board 2x2 base, and I'm putting a really thick coat of glue on it and covering it in sand. Just patting it lightly to make sure it's pressed in well. And now I'm on to the babies. So I made this mold before when I did my swarms. So if you want to see how I made that, you can check out that video. I'll be linking that above. And I'm just pressing green stuff. This is my first time using green stuff with these molds, by the way. Worked okay. It was a little difficult because it was sticky, but I just took a little ball of green stuff and pressed it into the mold and then used my X-Acto blade to try and cut as close as I could to a little piece of what was embossed on the top that looks like the little baby scorpions. I do put the mold itself, which is made out of Sculpey, into water, and I also used water on my fingers and on the X-Acto knife to try and make this a little bit easier because green stuff is quite tacky when it's first mixed. But anyway, I decided that the scorpion would have babies all over its back, so that's what I did. I used 3 different molds so that the little babies on the back weren't all the same. And then I decided that I wanted the eyes to be bigger. I could have left them the way they were, but I just thought it would be more monstrous if they were bigger. So I just put 2 balls of green stuff on the face about where the toy's eyes were and used my silicone sculpting tool to sort of press in actual eyes and give a ring around it. And then I make these 2 cones for mouth pincer parts. And I'm using my X-Acto blade to just give it a serration and pinching it in a bit with my fingers and silicone sculpting tool to make it look more like the mouth of a scorpion. Now I'm stepping outside because I want to quickly base coat this whole thing, and I picked up some Citadel black primer. It's best to do this in a well-ventilated area, and I don't really have a great well-ventilated area in my house, so I just stepped outside for this. I used some blue tack and stuck the very belly of the scorpion onto a popsicle stick, and then I held it out in front of me and just sprayed it at all angles to get a good coat of the primer on. Now that that's done, it's back inside. Once my primer's dried, I'm just taking some of my regular cheap acrylic paints that I got at the dollar store and the thinnest brush that they sold there, and I'm just going over all of the baby scorpions on the back. I decided it'd be fun to make them have different colored claws, tails, and abdomens. Frequently, baby scorpions are pretty much just white. I didn't really want to do that because I didn't think that was as fun, but occasionally they do have some color. Usually it'll be their tail, sometimes claws. I think it's because it's just got more of an exoskeleton to it. But anyway, I gave them orange legs, yellow pincer claws, and then I do like a reddish tail later. And I'm just doing a dry brush on the adult's legs. I did a brownish coat and then a reddish coat, and I did bright orange for the stinger on the tail and for the mandibles, and then I decided to make the front claws red. But again, this is all dry brush over the black base coat because it's a monster creature, so I wanted it to be real dark. I just wanted to give hints of color, I guess is the best way to put it. So I do go over it several times with the dry brush and sort of build up the color in slightly different ways where I want it. The pincers I kept making more and more red, and they have a bit of a gradient where they fade darker towards the inside and brighter red on the outside. And there on the belly you can see where I had the blue tack before. That's why it's still pink. It'll be on the bottom and right near the base, so no one's gonna see it, so I didn't really care. I do the edging around the eyes, and then the first 3 segments on the base of the tail, I do that red matching the pincers, and then inside the mandible mouth parts, I did a little bit red just because it could be blood, could be, I don't know, it's wearing lipstick, who knows. Just thought it'd be fun, give it different colors. And I used the same colors that I used on the babies so that they match a little bit. And now, just to make the babies stand out a little bit more and boost their detail, because they are stamps and they did get squished a little bit more than I'd wanted, because again, they were originally made for Sculpey, but I was using green stuff, and because it's tacky, it was a bit tricky. So I'm just doing a black wash over things that I want to really highlight detail on. So all the babies on the back, the eyes, the mouth, and then certain segments on the front pincers of the parent. And here I'm just going in, I'm removing all the paint and water from my brush. I'm just siphoning the wash back off of the babies where it was too thick and deep, because I want the legs to show and they were getting a little drowned by the wash. So I'm using my E6000 glue, and I'm just putting little blobs on the ends of all of the parents' toe tips, foot tips, footies. And then I just stick it right down on the base. And I decided I wanted to boost the babies a little bit more and have them match a little bit more. So I decided to do a very quick, thin, white dry brush just over them. And I'm using Mod Podge as a gloss on the parents' eyes and on the babies. But I'm very carefully trying to paint just the babies and not just putting it all over the back. So that's why I'm using a very thin brush for this part. And in the mouth, because again, who knows? Lip gloss, blood. And here it is done. Well, that's it from me. If you enjoyed this and want to see more of me making my art, please like, follow, and subscribe.